We are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Get Me Someone Who Can Sell. And today I have a treat for y'all. I have an amazing Kay Oder with me. I met Kay a long time ago, 15 years ago. And when I met Kay, I didn't even know she was in sales. That's what an sales expert she is, because she truly focused on helping me back in the day. And I didn't even realize that, I was in the sales process, but she really helped me with my big project that I was working on. And since then, I've had so much admiration for her. And so when I thought about my guests, I thought I had to have her on immediately, so she can share her wisdom with us on what makes a great salesperson a great salesperson. So we'll go into your story. I know you're retired now, but we'll go into your story and your career so other people can learn. If you're a sales manager, you can learn what a strong performer looks like. If you're in sales, you can learn how to be successful in sales by listening to Kay. So with all further ado, I'm Olga, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. And we've got Kay here with us. So Kay, let's get started.
Sure.
What made you think that you want to do sales, and how did you think you're going to be successful doing that?
Didn't intend to be in sales, but by happenstance, I wound up intercepting some phone calls at a company I worked for and calming some clients down. And the manager or the owner of the company wound up saying, "Would you talk to that client all the time?" I said, "Sure." And one led to another, and I did inside sales for a company and then in outside sales. And this was in the oil field petrochemical industry, and there weren't very many women in outside sales. And way back then, there definitely weren't any young women there. So that was kind of a learning curve, very steep.
And how did you get into that company? How did you get in sales with that company first?
Just because I calmed down an irate client, and then he didn't want to speak to anyone but me. And he happened to be the president of a company we did business with. And from that, I just started helping other people in sales and moved into the inside sales position and basically managed that. And then I asked to go into outside sales, and they just laughed and said, "No, we can't put a woman in outside sales, and it's just not heard of." And so I left that company, went to work for another company that hired me to do outside sales. And it was a blast. But then one of my clients that I was calling on offered me a job. And I thought about it not too long and went to work with them. And they did a lot more training with me, not so much in sales, but product knowledge. And that launched a couple of years later into opening my own company with a business partner, selling the same type of equipment and products that I had sold for the last two companies. So that was kind of.
So did you know? So you did not know you were going to be amazing at sales. You didn't have any signs growing up that maybe this is something that you wanted to do?
Well, it kind of something that happened early on. My grandfather, to supplement his income as a chief of police in our hometown, did lots of things. And one of the things he would do would be drive to Hempstead, Texas every year and load up a truck and a trailer with watermelon and cantaloupe and drive them back to our hometown. And then my brother and I would set up the fruit stand. And so we were selling cantaloupes 3 for 50 cents or whatever it was at the time. And about that time, we had a dog that had some puppies. So we were making a big deal about buy 3 cantaloupes for 50 cents and get a free puppy. So, you have to entice people to buy sometimes.
So you started learning early from your grandpa.
Yeah. And people didn't always, we didn't ask the mother about it. While they're looking at the cantaloupe, we're taking it over to the kid and showing the kid the puppy. So that was my first sales experience, was cantaloupe and pups.
Okay. But then sounds like, so you went to this other company. So you were, so you clearly were good with customers. Because the customers, asked for you. And then when you volunteered to be in outside sales and they did not want you to go into that, you decided to take it in your own hands.
Yep.
And so you expressed the interest. They said no, and then you went somewhere else. Is that right?
Right. And what was interesting, the reason I was successful with the next two companies, quite candidly, before my partner and I opened up a business, was when I left the first company, I had been talking to these guys and gals on the phone for a couple of years, and I made notes. I had a Rolodex with their name on it and their company. I knew who their what their kid's name was, what their dog's name was, when they went hunting, where their hunting lease was. So I had a lot of just things that had connected me to those folks. And so when I left, after being able to speak to him on the phone for a couple of years and then going into a company that let me go outside sales, it was like old home week. I was meeting with friends. And I would walk away with an inquiry or whatever, of course, and take it back. And our folks would work the inquiry and stuff. And so it became that my claim to fame was making the phone ring, but I didn't run back and answer it.
Wow. So back before CRMs existed,
Yeah,
right?
Rolodex.
So you had your own way of keeping notes because
Sure.
that is super important. Because
Sure.
even now, some people would not take notes, would not make that because it's too much work. So you noticed early on that that was your secret to success.
It worked for me. I had to be somewhat organized, and I dealt with so many people, and there were so many events in their lives that would be impressive, or I'd want to make sure the next time I talked to him was, okay, he graduated from college or from high school. Where's he going to college? And, to keep that, I was definitely interested, but I needed to keep up with it. So, yeah.
So you were in outside sales now. So, back then. So how did you know that this is for me? Like what were some of the things that were exciting for you and you were like, okay, I'm going to do this long term? Like what were some of the things that you noticed?
I think that, and I'm going to switch over to my career for the last 28 years before I retired. One of the things that was fun for me that really drove me is that I had used the services and I'm just, the Insperity was a company I went to work for.
Absolutely. Talk about them. I love Insperity.
I was a client of theirs, and they saved my bacon several times. They handled everything around the HR, the compliance issue, the payroll, the benefits, all that sort of thing. And I was impressed. And when I sold the company, I talked to them and said, I think this is a great thing. And they were the third company that I had used that had that type of services. And I felt like they were the best. And so I visited with them, and I'd kind of made up my mind after doing a little bit more digging into the company that I wanted to sell that type of service. And so I just went and talked with them. And
so you had an intuition come in, your inner voice, you researched it. You're like, this is for me. And then what? So you came to your contact there and said, I want to work here. Like, what did you do?
Yep. I asked for an introduction to one of the guy that headed up the sales department and the hiring and that sort of thing, met with him. And he assured me they were not looking to hire anyone. And I assured him I wasn't looking for a job right now because I just sold a company and I wanted to take off a while. So we chit-chatted and argued for about 6 months. And so finally, at one of our meetings, I told him that I realized he didn't want anyone to start right now. I wasn't looking to start, but I had made up my mind that I was going to sell this service to other business owners.
Wow.
And then I didn't say anything else. And a little pregnant pause there for a moment. And he goes, well, have we discussed what our compensation package is? And I said, no, but let me tell you how I'd like to get paid.
This is an amazing story.
And
so what happened then?
He just kind of stepped back a little bit. And I said, I want to get paid for what I do. I want to know that whenever I bring on a client, that I'm going to get compensated in whatever fashion it is that we've agreed to. And it doesn't depend on if the company's met their quota or my department's met their metrics or whatever. If I make a sale, I want to know that I'm going to get paid for that, regardless of anything else that happens in the company. And he paused and he said, well, that's exactly how we pay. I went, okay, this is cool. So about another month or 6 weeks later, I showed up and went to work for them. And
so I want to do a little time out here. So we kind of sprinkle little tips through the interview. So I want you all to notice that another case, week to week, we see that salespeople who are really, really incredible, they take initiative. So Kay, not only she's like, oh, I want to sell this. Then she asked for introduction. Then she met with the guy, and then she would chat with him, right? So
Yeah.
she kept on going, and that is follow through, follow up. And then she ended up, like if I'm not going to work here, I want to sell the service somewhere else. And so to me, this shows that this person has a determination, will, and they're not going to give up when they're going to get a no, right? Because she basically told you we're not hiring, and you're like, well, not right now, you're not, but but maybe later. So you skipped your chunk of life where you run your own business, right?
Right.
And so, which I don't want to overlook that because that's super impressive. So that was about what, 30 years ago, or how far ago was that? 35.
Opened the company in June of 81, and I
Okay.
joined Insperity in May of 93.
So it's about 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Wow. So 12 years.
Yes.
So tell me, you make everything look so easy. I bet it wasn't easy.
No.
So what were the challenges you dealt with, not only running your own business, but also being, I'm guessing, the face of the company when it comes to sales? So kind of what were the good, the bad, and the ugly? Kind of what did you have to deal with?
Well, again, my comment about I could make the phone ring. So I can do the clerical work. I could do the inside sales work. I could do the outside sales work. No one else wanted to go outside sales. And so that was my thing to do. And occasionally I would ask my business partner, who is Kay Oder, who ultimately wound up being my life partner, if he took care of the inside sales and actually ran the whole back office of the company. And so I would take him on a sales call every once in a while, and he would, get up, dress up, and show up. And we would go on our call, and we're talking with engineers with all of these big engineering and construction firms like Brown and Root, Aramco, Kellogg, that sort of thing. And we would meet with the procurement manager and maybe even engineers. He would answer all the technical questions and things like that. We'd get in the car and he'd jerk that tie off. He said, "Don't make me do that again." So it was somewhat by default, because you have to have people outside, you had to have people inside, you had to have all the back office stuff. So that was what I gravitated to and what I focused on, and it was fun. One of the things about being in outside sales that makes it fun and makes it easy is if you absolutely feel that the company cares for you and takes care of you. You know the product or the service that you're delivering is making a difference in people's lives. Now, I wasn't impacting anybody's at home. If you were a procurement agent for a engineering and construction firm, but the products and the services that we delivered made them look good. They got what they ordered on the time that they wanted. So we were always in compliance with all the requirements of making the deliveries. And so we did make their lives a little bit easier. And so I in particular, were very proud of that. And people call people and do business with people that they like and that they trust. And so that was the reputation that I had, and certainly my company had, with the people that we did business with.
So you said something about people like and people trust, because that's something that I liked you when I met you, but I also trusted you immediately because you had this incredible skill set of listening and be present. And I bet that's been your trend, throughout the whole career. So tell me, was it always easy in terms of selling? Did you close every single deal that you got across, or did you have some no's? Did you have to deal with rejection or people not taking meetings with you? Did you have to deal with any of that, or was every deal closed at whoever you talked to?
Sure, I closed everything. No.
I don't know. No. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting with the company that I had, we sold oil field equipment and fittings and valves and pressure vessels and just all kinds of stuff like that. And invariably, when I would walk into the waiting room to call on someone in the procurement area or the engineering area, I was the only woman in the room. So quite candidly, I think I really got some interviews simply because they were curious. But as far as getting the deals, in that particular industry, it was very competitive. So, I was not going to be low bid on most things, but I certainly wasn't the highest. So it was, you had to be there. And then once you got established as someone who was competitive in pricing, deliveries were good. There was no question about the authenticity of the material that we were selling, things like that. Then we got more and more shots at things as time went on. But yeah, it was always in that particular industry, it was a spreadsheet, and they had to check off so many boxes. But I rarely didn't get a shot at it. A real quick story. I called on a group of Brown and Root procurement people. They were in a field office, and on Friday they didn't see salespeople, especially afternoon. But I had asked them, I said, "Are you guys free for lunch on Friday?" And they said, "Well, we only work a half a day on Friday." And I went, "Oh, well then do you go have lunch?" "Well, yeah." "Well, can I take you guys all to lunch?" And they said, "Yeah." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Well, we all ride our motorcycles to work on Friday." And I went, "Oh, okay. Where do you go?" "Well, this little place that they roll up the door and you come in and they tap the beer, and all this kind of stuff." And I said, "Okay, I'm down with that." He said, "Okay." So I ride up there right about noon on my motorcycle. And one of my competitors pulls up and he's begging the guy at the guard shack to take his proposal in, even though it's after 12, or letting them see it. And he's just telling him, no, no. Well, every time they start talking, I'd rev my motorcycle up and make lots of noise. And he would look over at me and try to talk
Oh
over
my
us
gosh.
to the guard shack. Finally, he gets out of his car and he comes over and he goes, "What is your problem?" Took off my helmet, shook out my hair, and said, "I got no problem. I'm waiting to go take these guys to lunch. What are you doing here?" So, but again, the trust, the delivery on what you say you're going to do, and building connections and personal relationships. Because at that particular job site, there were guys at that job site that I had worked with when they were at other job sites. So it was the connection.
Well, and you keep saying this three-letter word, fun, that you don't really hear that much anymore, right? When it comes in sales, because there's the grind and the hustle, and it's so refreshing to hear somebody talk about fun.
If you're not having fun, you're in the wrong place.
Right. So that's usually a good sign. If you're interviewing somebody and they're just hustling and grinding, it's like, are they going to be fun to be around? Or more importantly, will the prospect take them to lunch on the motorcycle, or or not? So when you started your business, did you have like a formula? If I do X number of, I don't know, visits or calls, and I know it was long ago, but was there like any kind of formula? Did you figure it out? Did you have goals? How much money you wanted to make? How many people you wanted to serve? How did you start? Like, what was your North Star, and like, how did you build it up? Or was it just like, whatever happens?
It was the whatever happens stuff.
Okay.
No, I mean, my thing, and even with Insperity, they would ask me, "What are your goals?" And not to diss anybody that does that, I never did. I always knew what I had to do. So you get up, dress up, show up, one foot in front of the other. If you're at work from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever it is, you're working. You're not playing. And if I hadn't talked to a customer, I'd look at my list. I hadn't talked to this guy in a couple of months, and pick up the phone and give him a call. And so it was just a constant work that was going on. But as far as saying, "Gosh, I need to make 30 calls," or something. Matter of fact, if you want to see me get upset, ask me what my goals are, or what are you going to sell this month? I got no answer. And actually, I don't have it out. I went and bought a crystal ball and put it on my desk. And when my boss at Insperity would come and ask me, "What are you going to sell this month?" I would just pick it up and look at it. And I go, "I don't know. Do you see anything?" So he kind of loved to hate me, I think, sometimes. Great guy. All of them. Worked with quite a few of them. But I don't know how to answer that question. Now, I listened to your interview with Adam Boyd the other day, and I admired that he had metrics and systems and processes and checking in and that sort of thing. And I think that quite candidly, I've been told the majority of the people think that way versus the way that I work. But I'll make a list of things to do today that I've thought about. But as far as metrics and goals and things like that, I kind of skipped that course.
Well, and I think this is an important thing why I wanted to also interview you is because I want to shine the light on all different styles because it works. It works for every particular for you it works this way, for me it works this way. And so I bet though internally you are driven by something. It may not be goals, but it has to be some kind of thing that gets you out of bed in the morning and get going.
Well, quite
So
candidly, it was the excitement of seeing the people. I definitely wanted to be able to make those connections. I wanted to make, like even with meeting with you, you were stepping in a new role with the company and becoming the company owner. And it was like, what can I do to help her succeed, to show something, educate in some way that made your life easier. So getting up in the morning and being able to go and see a client or a new prospect or something like that would float my boat for sure. Just another.
So this is another tip that I want to kind of point out is that some people are really driven by accomplishing, checking check marks, money. We call it extrinsic motivation. Some people are really driven by internal motivation. Like I came to America because I wanted a better life for my kids, and I will do whatever it takes to make that happen. I don't have some like goal that I have over there, maybe for today or tomorrow. But the same thing is with Kay is that she truly cares about serving people and helping people. So like
Yes.
your goal may not have metrics, but your goal is I want to help as many people as possible. Who do you know? Who can I help? Who do you know? Who can I help? I think everybody knows you in Austin. And I bet wherever you go, they will know you because you have that true servant. I don't know if that's a right word to say, but servant heart of how can I help with my gift as many people as possible. And that's not being talked enough, unfortunately, because that's what's going to make me introduce you to more people than those that just want to hit their quota.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that if somebody, and you and I had this conversation one time before, but sales is an honorable profession, and so do it well. And I've told many a person that if you want to be successful, make sure that that you're a student of your company, you're a student of your industry, you're a student of your products and services. And because the last thing somebody wants to hear is when you ask a question is, I don't know. No, you can occasionally say, I know the answer to that, but I want to double check before I respond. I'm confident I do, and if you need to step away and take time, but I don't know is just not it. But working for a company like I did that I felt like was the best in the industry. So if you're working for a company and there's others out there that are besting you or they're higher integrity, they're just a better company all the way along, go talk to them, go to work for them. Make sure that you're educated about what it is that they do, their place in the industry, in your community, and have faith in what it is that you're selling. Because if you don't, you're going to get tagged as a phony and a fake real quickly. Or you get told, they'll tell you anything to get the sale. Yeah, that's not a good feeling at all.
Right. So you have a different formula than would say 80% of people out there, but you clearly had an incredible success with your own business because you sold it, correct? Mm-hmm. So it got sold after 12 years. And then you come in to admin staff back in the day. Now it's in Insperity. So, and then clearly you stayed there for 28 years and I guarantee you they wouldn't keep anybody for that long if they weren't, bringing success. So if you had to look at overall, results, where would you say, were you always on top? Where would you fit in the sales team that, and I don't know if you can share that, but how would you kind of rate?
Well, I will say I would say I was pretty much in the top 10% every year. if not higher of that. When we started, I think I was the, I don't know, 12th salesperson that they added to the staff. And now there's probably close to 700 or 800 in that role. Yeah, it was very competitive, and that was one of the other things that I did get into a hiring position with them for a couple of years, and I would always ask people. We took competency tests and personality profiles and things like that. And on 1 to 99, if they weren't hitting 90 and above on competition, I didn't think they were going to make it there. And not that they have to be competitive with the other people in the office, but with themselves. If you can't rest on laurels, yeah, you sold something and it was a big, nice deal and we're all happy for you, but I need you to do it again next month. What are you doing to get that squared away? So be competitive. I sold a 50-person deal this month. How can I sell a 60-person next month? Or 220s or something, but just staying competitive, not being just kind of content with what that was.
Which is very common too. If somebody's not
It
meant to
is.
be in sales, it's like, I made my quota in 3 months, I'm gonna coast the rest of the year. And again, if there's no drive like what you have, helping as many people as possible, doing whatever you need to do today, it's very hard to keep going because the motivation is just not there.
Mhm.
So you went from selling oil and gas equipment, and I honestly don't really know valves. I don't know much about what exactly you sold.
You use the valve every day when you turn the water on.
I bet. I try not to get under the sink and try to figure out what's going on with it. So you went from selling very technical equipment, I'm guessing, to selling PEO services and benefits and payroll and very different, right? Would you say they're different?
Oh yeah, very different. Very different. Talking to an entirely group of different people. People that were in procurement, they were literally paid to talk to me.
Right.
That's how they got educated and how they made purchases. So not so much when you're trying to sell to a CEO or anybody in the C-suite.
So would you say you went to Insperity with no industry experience of selling PEO services? You've only been using them.
Correct.
So you had experience on the other side.
Right.
And you liked it.
Yes.
So this is another pushback I get a lot. We need somebody with industry experience. Okay. So how would somebody like you come from oil and gas, making a switch to services? So you went from selling something you could demonstrate to something that was more
intangible.
Right. So how did you make that transition? Was it hard for you? What are your tips for somebody to do that? And then also for hiring managers to stop using that as their main criteria for hiring somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, I was in my 40s when I went to work for Insperity. So I'd already had life experience, business experience, and I was going to be talking to people who were in that age bracket and then some, and they were going to be owners of businesses or somebody in the C-suite. And so I would tell folks whenever I call on them, I can have this conversation about what this company can do for your company, the impact it makes for you and your employees from both sides of this desk, because I've been where you are. So it was a very relatable conversation that I had with people. And that's just it. It was a conversation, an authentic business conversation. And along the way, we would swap stories. And, when most people meet me, they would have never thought I would have owned a motorcycle. They would have never thought I've done or been in some of the places and things that I've done. So it was always kind of fun to drop some of that. And or the same old thing you do. Somebody will make a comment about, good Monday morning, and I think, great, how was your weekend? And they would say, man, I had a great time. I was playing tennis and I won all the matches. And I'm, seriously, how long have you been playing? So it was, we made personal connections, and I draw a difference between connections and networking. So these are making connections. So that's the easy part for me. And then once we get to that, it's like, well, I'm really here to talk to you about XYZ. And can I take 10 minutes of that And then I want to circle back to your tennis matches, So yeah, it was.
So you went from selling to procurement officer, right? So like you said, they have different driving forces to different decision maker.
Yes.
Because your formula sounds like you always talk about what impact this could have, or potentially
Yes.
down the road, and have a business conversation.
Yes.
And you're clearly good after all these years of practice, kind of focusing on the business and what you can solve, what kind of problem you can solve for them. So how long did it take for you to feel like you were comfortable selling PEO services? Was it a couple months? Like how did you get so good? So like, what was the process?
I'm going to say for me, it was clearly a year. I made my first sale probably my second month. But I was still, I was winging it. And the training was basically on the job training. And you had to make sales calls with the other sales consultants. And so it was catch as catch can to be able to go on a call with those folks. But one of the things that I did that was recommended to me, because I said, how do I learn more about this? Because there just was not any actual training classes at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, go ahead.
Hold on. I don't know if you can hear the noise because there is something going on right now in the background. Hold on. Okay. Whew, thank you. Sorry about that. Something just went off. I don't know. It's just something happens. Okay.
But no, I went in, I say be a student of the company. So I went in and talked to the head of every department that they had. And why, if I was a business owner, why is your department important to me? So you handle benefits. Tell me about that. Why do we have to have workers' comp? It's not required in Texas. No, it's not, but here's the reasons why you want to have it. Why do you want to have a handbook when I'm talking to the HR director? Tell me where can people that own a business trip up about doing payroll? How do we keep them out of hot water? So I got if each one of these people were sitting in front of a business owner and explaining their role, that's what I wanted. I wanted to know what they did and how it impacted the business. And so, a lot of liability that goes around with being a business owner. And so that's what I did, is I immersed myself in and educated, and people were more than happy to tell me. And it didn't matter which department I was talking with, they were the most important one, either in my opinion or theirs. So I got a lot of information.
Yeah.
And so that's that. I go back to be a student, and it's a lot of problem solving when you're talking to people, and a lot of folks, you walk in, I don't care what you're selling, and they go, yeah, I already have that. I don't need yours. Okay. So you have to be able to deal with those, not only the no's, but the indifferences, and be able to tell a story or relatable, something or other that gets them to at least think about it.
So when you would go and grow as a salesperson in your career, did you ever have to like journal or use any kind of mindset work and did you ever notice that you were hitting, maybe this deal size was hard for you to close, maybe a bigger amount, or maybe this particular personality type was hard for you to deal with, or maybe it was this type of business that was maybe more challenging? Were you like able to figure out like, where am I stuck, or maybe not moving as fast? And did you ever have to do any kind of introspective work, or was it always more intuitive, just kind of go with the flow kind of thing? Like what was?
I'm going to say that I relied on other people in the company. I've learned a long time ago, I don't play well by myself. So if I had an issue or a concern about going and talking to a certain company, or maybe, like you said, a larger company, then I would bring in other people and say, here's what I'm seeing. This is my concern about going into this company, or we've gotten this far down the line. These are the things that are happening, and just trying to brainstorm on how to handle that. You said the things that I would do would be more, there's a site called Insight Timer, an app that you can download. Lots of motivational type stuff. self-assurance, confidence, the meditations, listening to that sort of thing. And just, not Wonder Woman pose, hands on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
hips,
yep,
looking to
yep. You
the.
taught me. You taught me that. Yep.
And so being confident in what you're doing. And if I ever felt like I was losing that sense of confidence or assurance, then I would kind of step back. And I have to tell you, I had great support people. My husband, my parents, they were all, what are you worried about? They should be worried. Yeah. Whoever you're calling on should be worried, not you. And so great support, but yeah, some reflection, but always trying to do something in a very positive manner.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, that's what I feel like. That's something that's not talked very much either, because it's all about doing certain things, but then you get lost sometimes in the process, maybe, or maybe the pressure from somewhere else starts affecting you, and then you get lost of who you are, or in Sandler we call it identity versus role, and then you lose track of your identity because of whatever role you're trying to do. And so like I meditate a lot, for example, and journal, and some people pray, or some people have different things that they go back to getting grounded, to know that just because I got rejected or because I didn't meet my number doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. So that was just curious if you had your personal kind of go-to book. Sounds like your family and support system was that. And
well, and yeah, I'm going to say the support team that I had, support people around me were very important. But you said book. I love Steve Harper's book, The Ripple Effect, because you can actually connect with people. And another site that I just recently discovered that I really wish I'd known about, or it was around whenever I was doing this, is called Science of People. And
interesting.
it's very interesting. I wanted to find out. I've heard all my life that people take anywhere 3 seconds, and they take one look at you and they determine what's your education level, how much money you make, are you trustworthy, do you beat your dog? I mean, all sorts of things that go and get settled in a real short time. And so I wanted to see really what that was. And I was looking at their site, and they're saying, I think it was a Princeton study that said between 1/10 of a second to 7 seconds, people will determine in their mind your first impression, all of those things. And so, and that they said, looking at this test, I think it was like 64% of what they determined was correct. So how you present yourself makes a lot of difference. And people's first impressions can be changed, but it takes a while. But and that's why you've heard me say a couple of times, get up, dress up, show up. And people would ask me, wow, what can we do? You're successful. Can I follow you around? And I said, sure. And then I'd go, but you can't wear that shirt. You're going to have to go put on something else. Or, that skirt's not going to work. So that I think that first impressions are very, very important.
And you have complete control over that. That's one thing that's always, you don't have to wear the fanciest suit, but it has to be clean or something like that. Where it's, like that, those are the kind of things, I came here with a suitcase and like $100, but at the same time, my mom always taught me, like, make sure your hair is put together, you've got your clean clothes, and you can never go wrong with that. And so, and that's been my motto in life. So that's always good to hear that. And in the interview, I always tell the clients that too, like, if the candidates show up and they just don't treat this like this is important to them, it's probably not a good sign.
Right.
So
if you can't show up and impress your prospective employer, yeah. And I just recently was aware of somebody that went to an interview, and Austin is a casual city. I was there for 6 months before I ever called on somebody that was a business owner that was wearing long pants and shorts and flip-flops. But it's a casual city. But an applicant showed up in blue jeans and a baseball cap, and just they probably quite skilled and capable of what he was doing, but it didn't go over well. I didn't feel like that he put the effort in there for the first interview, much less if he did that here, what would he do on their
Right.
own?
No, this is a great example to kind of show that how they do anything is most likely how they're going to do,
Exactly.
everything. So you went from running your own business to then you went to Insperity and you were mostly an individual contributor.
Correct.
So last week we had somebody who went from individual contributor to being in charge of sales because that's what his goals were.
Mm-hmm.
How did you figure out that I've tried it, I've run the business, but kind of what was your path? Because I know it's different than what Ben's
It
was.
was different.
Yes.
When I was interviewed at Insperity, they wanted me in a management situation. And I laughed and I said, no, I want to be responsible for what I do. And hence the whole conversation about I want to get compensated for what I do, not what you did or didn't do. I didn't want to manage people. I'd been doing that for a number of years and had the heavy responsibility, which it is heavy. If you own a company, you have employees. I mean, your kid can't get sick till theirs get well. You can't go on vacation till they go on theirs. There's a lot of responsibility when it comes to being a business owner. And I had been there, done that, enjoyed it about all I could stand. And so I wanted to be my own manager. And that's what I felt like was important for me. So every year for about, 13 years, I said no. And then I did step into a management role for a couple of years, and actually 3. And it was a temporary thing. We all knew that. So I was really happy to get out of that and get back into sales myself. And to me, it just wasn't any question about it. I didn't have the ambition to be a manager or a vice president of a company or any of that sort of thing. I wanted to be able to connect with my clients and make a good living. And Insperity certainly afforded me that.
And that's another thing to keep in mind when you're interviewing people. And if that's what they want, that's their goals, and that's what they're going to shine the most. You shouldn't be putting them in the side something just because they're good at this. Push them towards a leadership role, whatever that is, if that's not what they want, because you got to listen to what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because,
and I think I just flat told him, it was apparent I wasn't rocking a boat anywhere or shocking anyone. I said, I think I'm a very good leader. I'm a lousy manager. And so we just kind of left it at that.
But you knew that about yourself, and
I did.
and you light up when you help people and your customers, and it's good just to, this is your lane, right? Like
that was my lane, exactly.
You knew your lane. So you come across as a very friendly, very personable, very warm person, right? But you also are very direct. You always are straight. And that's one of the things I really admired about you when I first started working with you. I knew whatever you say, you weren't sugarcoating anything, but you also had my best interest of like what needs to happen. Like you were the expert in a very tough transition that I had to do.
Thank you.
And I looked up to that. However, a lot of times that kind of personality, and I don't know if you ever had to deal with that in your career, that comes across to hiring managers and managers in general, like, oh, they're tough, they're too direct, they're too independent, they're too, and they pass really good people because of that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't hire them. They wouldn't hire somebody like you because if you robbed the hiring manager, like sounds like this hiring manager was a smart cookie to figure out I gotta snatch this woman before she goes somewhere else. Right? But like, what would you say to the hiring managers when they are dealing with somebody who asks questions about compensation and numbers and things and quotas, and like what would you say to them? Like what advice would you give to somebody who is interviewing a strong personality like yourself?
Well, if I could have played for a living, I think I would have, but I couldn't. I had to work. And there were certain things that I had to get out of my work and my livelihood. And I think someone who doesn't ask those questions is, they may not be as interested in staying with the company. They're just looking for the next job. I wanted a career after I sold the company. So I wanted to know all the ins and outs. So if somebody asks those questions and it makes the hiring manager feel a little bit put off, I think the hiring manager needs to check themselves. Because if you've got a person asking those kind of questions, if they're on a sales call, they're going to have to be asking some tough questions. They're going to have to figure out how to position what it is that they're selling and ask the tough questions even of their prospects. So I think being able to read the situation and ask questions, whether it's lighthearted or they're the really ones that dig, I think that's a skill set that you want in sales. Does that make sense?
Amen. I mean, this is what I have to, convince people on the regular basis is that it's a good sign that they're asking questions. It would be bad if they didn't.
Yeah.
So in terms of your playbook, so when you got to Insperity, you had some contacts of business owners from your old company, but would you say what was your first year like? How did you go from being a rookie? Is that a word? Like a newbie, I guess a newbie.
I was a newbie.
How did you go from being like a newbie to really get up? I mean, besides the learning and the company and doing all that stuff, but in terms of activities, like what did you do? How did you build your business from pretty much, not being in the industry?
Well, again, connections. If I sold a client, then I stayed in touch with them, obviously, through their whole lifespan with us. And I would ask for referrals. The other thing I would do is find out, like, the first one I sold was a company that did physical therapy. And so one of the things that I asked her, I said, how do you market your company? And she said, well, pretty much by word of mouth. And I said, great, I'm real mouthy. Who can I talk to about you? Where do I need to help connect you? And because I'd had a business and had worked with some other business owners and stuff, I asked her about marketing. Are you paying $25 in any of the school newspaper? Put your ad, the business card ad in there and things like that. And this was way before social media. And so we'd try to help them grow their business, which in turn would get them to introduce me to other folks. And I wasn't shy about asking. Matter of fact, it would be, come on, Lisa, let's go to lunch. And by the way, don't you have another one of your clients that's a chiropractor that's got a big practice? Can we get her to come with us? And so it was just the asking. And you were talking about knowing people. I did in Houston, which is where I started with them. But then I moved to Austin, Texas in 1996. And the only three people I knew there, a tiny baby, which was my granddaughter, her mom, my daughter, and her dad. My daughter is an accountant. And so she worked for a pretty good sized company. So there was no networking in there. My son-in-law was a cop, didn't want to associate with the friends that he associated with or the people he did business with. And so I had to start all over. And I developed my own network there by reading the business journal. And I would see somebody was selling a lot of, their name was always on this company is leasing this building space. And they were always the agent on it. Called them up and said, I'm new to town, reading the business journal, and it's disturbing. I see your name in there all the time. And
Here's the fun thing.
Yeah, we'd have fun with, and then we would meet, and the next thing you know, there would be 4 or 5 other people that person introduced me to, and then us 5 or 6 people started having a meeting at the office for coffee and whatever at 9:00 on Tuesday mornings, and we would sit there for an hour or so. We spent the first couple of weeks just getting to know each other. Who are you? What kind of business do you do? What kind of people do you meet? What's the benefit of doing business with you? Because what I was building, and this is an old word, but I was building a yellow pages of people that whenever I would meet with a client or a prospect and they would say, this is well and good, but what I'm really needing right now is somebody to help me out with my IT department. And I go, oh, I have a guy. And so I was networking for the people that I was having coffee with once a week, but using that as a springboard to meet their clients or either to get them to meet my clients and prospects. So it was all interwoven. And then I didn't I didn't qualify for the trip that year that we moved. I was very disappointed, but I did the next 20. So can't complain too much.
This is what you should start with. I went on all those trips except for this one year when I moved and I had to build it from scratch. So it sounds like, I mean, yeah, the years go by, but it doesn't sound like the sales itself really changing, right? So it sounds like it's still about helping people. It's still about connecting. It's still about making impact. You still have to keep notes in the CRM. The technology may change, but the actual science of selling is really not changing. What would you say about that? Like, would you say now, when you started, at Insperity 28 years and now, like, was there anything that's super earth-shattering different, or is it pretty much at the core the same?
I think that the people that have been successful that I worked with in Insperity were all based on relationship sales. And they honed that skill set, but it wasn't something, I mean, they honed it, but they already had it. That was at their core, is to be a giving person, a problem-solving person, someone that wanted to see other people succeed and help them get there. And so, no, I think there are other people who do the smile and dial, and they can call people and things like that. But, Olga, you were a client. And if I said, I am a professional employer organization and I want to talk to you about your HR stuff, well, that doesn't mean anything to you. Now, if I said, I'm selling pens, do you want blue ink or black ink? You know exactly what I'm talking about. But this was a consultative sale, and you are selling basically an intangible. So it can't be a phone call. It has to be, for me, it had to be introductions, warm calls, versus being a cold call. And if it's a warm call and it's a relationship sale, then it's that connection that has to take place.
And you still went on trips every year, so that must have worked. So that's my other thing is again, this is why I love this kind of interview, is because you don't have to follow everybody else's formula to be successful, because you found something that worked for you, but deep down you were driven by helping and making an impact.
Yes.
So, which is very important in sales.
And one of the things that I would throw out to people who are the hiring managers, if you find someone that is successful and they're doing it, they just don't do it the way that you thought they were going to do it, get out of their way and let them do it.
Thank you.
Because they're not, if what is it, the 80-20 rule? Mm-hmm. If everybody could do this, I mean, there were people that in Insperity, I would say, thank them for doing something for me, because it was integral that they got something done on a certain time frame or whatever. And I'd ask them, have you ever thought about sales? And they would, no, I could not do what you're doing. And I'm going, but it's fun. Because you're just talking to people. You're giving them, introducing to them and educating them in another way that they can get things done easier and quicker. And, but, they were terrified. Like even, people who don't like to go public speak. I think that's a hoot. So, it just different skill sets. But just simply because somebody doesn't make 30 phone calls in a day doesn't mean that they can't have 5 qualified appointments a month. It's just that they get it a different way.
Well, and this is why we always recommend, it's my tip of the day, is when you see that somebody has been successful, what kind of Kay mentioned, is ask about their formula for success. Not your formula of success, but their formula of success, because I guarantee you they have one. Right. And then all kinds of details will come out, and especially what's driving them and how to work with them, and then see if that's something that you want to be with. Clearly the guy that hired you was smart enough to see that, wow, I gotta have her, right, to sell for me, not my competitor over there. So if you are interviewing somebody, they're not
right
fitting in your box. But think about it. Do I want them to sell for my competitor and be successful there? If the answer is no, then stop being a baby.
That gentleman is a smart man, and he's a friend. So I really, we worked a lot of years together. But it would be, one of the things that we came up with one time is I said, you realize you're just paying me to go make friends, right? And he was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, you are. We're paying you to go make friends. Now get out of my office and go make some friends. Okay.
Yeah, I like the comparison. So I want to ask you one more question before we start wrapping this up.
Sure.
To be respectful of your time. I know you're very involved with some of the other organizations, like Vistage and other. I don't even know
The
how would you
Austin Executives Association.
Right.
Yeah.
They're so what drove you to do that? And why did you want to do it? And how did that work out for you?
Well, we'll pick on Vistage then. Vistage is very much like Insperity and Administaff, if you will. Vistage, Administaff, and Insperity are all made up words. And so, but it had meaning behind them. So like Insperity, it's a combination of inspiration and prosperity. And Insperity believes wholeheartedly in small to medium-sized businesses and those businesses being successful, because those were the things that make the United States, if you will, a great company. You've got a lot of business owners. Entrepreneurialism is lauded nicely. And this just was the same thing. They saw that small to medium-sized business was going to be growth. They employed most of the people in the United States are not working for the Fortune 500 companies. They're working for small to medium-sized businesses. They wanted to see those businesses succeed. And so Vistage brought a lot of coaching and mentoring and collaboration to the table with a lot of CEOs. Insperity, kind of the same thing. So when Vistage came into Austin, I got involved with them and just helped develop what did they call it? The trusted advisor group that Vistage had in Austin, developed that one. And it was just kind of it was a good marriage between the two companies. And certainly for me, I would be able to, as a trusted advisor, you kind of served at the whim of the person that was the chair. And if they were working with a company and there was an issue, whether it was like finances or IT, or we want to open a place and we want to start importing from another country or whatever, they could call someone in the trusted advisor group and say, will you meet with one of my members here about this issue? Now, I always joked, if you expected Vistage to feed me, that wasn't going to happen because their goal was to help their clients or their members. But I met a lot of business people there in Austin, did get quite a bit of business from it as well. But I think working with just like forming that first little networking group that I did of people who were talking to the same kind of people that I wanted to.
Right.
And so that's the same thing that Vistage did for me, was put me in touch with people that I sometimes might not have answered the phone when I called.
Did they tap you when Vistage came in, or did you volunteer? Like, how did that, because I'm curious of how did that happen?
One of the co-founders of Insperity or Administaff was a Vistage member at one time.
Oh, okay.
And so whenever the chair moved, Sam Jones was his name, moved to Austin, he got in contact with me about doing work with us, becoming a client, and then we became friends, and I helped start that other organization. So I hadn't heard about him until Sam called.
Amazing. So you got that opportunity to kind of start something because they knew you could do it. All right, well, let's oh my God, I could talk to you forever, but I also want to be respectful of your time. Maybe I'll have you back on sometime again if you come. But so tell me, to wrap this up, what questions I didn't ask you that you wished I asked you to kind of, what did I miss, basically, that you think is important for hiring managers to know, or maybe salespeople that are growing to know?
Yeah, I was going to look I made a few notes. I think something you touched on, and I didn't really say too much about it, but other than we talked about Wonder Woman, there's a pre-performance ritual that a lot of people go through. And I do like the Wonder Woman pose. It's empowering to stand there. 30 seconds like this, and I promise you, you'll have
Oh,
a better outlook on
I
it.
love it. I
You
do
can't
it.
help but smile and kind of strut a little bit. That's cool. But some people meditate like you do that, and just positive self talk, um, smile and laugh a lot. Um, and before I would go in and see somebody, especially if I thought it was going to be rough, but even if it wasn't, it was just like, oh, good, I get to go see Olga today. I'm going to be sure and ask her about her son and, how business is going. And I just kind of, think about those sort of things, all positive. And I think that's a big thing that salespeople that are successful. They have positive self-talk. And if you ever, if I drop something, I don't gripe at myself about it. I go, I need to clean this up. It's not a big deal, and so I don't just positive talk. And if you're not around people who support you, go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good because it's not just what you can do for them, but what can they do for you too.
Exactly.
It's got to be a balance.
Sure. Sure.
What else did I miss? Did I miss anything else that you think is important to know?
Um, Not really. I think we've touched on a lot of topics here.
This is typically like, and I think I told you that in the beginning. This is a little preview of how we do the second interview with a candidate. We really drill into the success formula and what motivates them, what drives them, how do they handle rejection, all the things that we kind of talked about, with you, because that's important, to know. So anyway, all right. Well, to wrap this up, what advice would you give yourself if you were just starting out, kind of in sales, knowing all you know right now?
I think I could have gotten kick started a little bit faster if I had worked with a mentor. And I think, you think about people like Brian Tracy and some of those folks, Jim Rohn, they all had a how-to kind of thing about relating to people and about sales. And so I think being a student of your art, your profession, would have been helpful to me. I got introduced to a lot of that sort of thing, like Jim Rohn was, and Brian Tracy was speakers that came to Insperity, and I was like, oh wow. And what was interesting to me is I could read their books or listen to them talk, and they were putting a definition around some of the things that I was doing intuitively. And I thought, okay, if I'm doing it intuitively, what if I actually learned a few hacks? It's like I know how to cook, but I watch the kitchen hacks that come across my Facebook feed every once in a while. So maybe I could learn to do something a little bit better and quicker. That website that I told you I ran across, the Science of People,
I can't wait to check it out.
that was very interesting. So I would say, be a student of you.
Yes. Okay. That you do that so well, and thank you so much for coming on the
You're
show.
welcome.
And you were just so inspiring. I mean, look how many years later you made an impact on me when I was just 24-year-old. Didn't know what the heck I was doing, but you were there guiding me along, made an impact. I mean, I think about you so often in my head.
Thank you.
Because you truly, you truly cared, because like you said, sales is an honorable profession, and there's unfortunately many people who don't honor it. And that's why I love talking to people like you who take this seriously. This is you are changing the world, and so you've done this so many times. So thank you for coming. Stay for just a second while I turn this live stream off. Where can people find you? Anything you want to talk, like where can they find you besides your LinkedIn profile? Anything that you've got going on that you want to share?
No, LinkedIn is about the best. I really, I used that a lot. It was a very early adopter of that. Adapter. And
one of those.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool if you're in sales, and you can reach me there. My email is on there, so happy to field questions. And if anybody is someone I haven't talked to in a while, give me a holler. I'd love to catch up again.
And you're happily retired, but you clearly still have a lot going on. So
I am happily retired in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So
all right. Cool. Well, Kay, thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Hold on.
Okay. Goodbye.